And I'm going to pass it over now. Kim, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask if you would talk to us about the Virginia Interfaith and what your organization does and what kind of communities you organize in.
Absolutely. So I'm Kim Bobo. I'm the director of the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. I think my colleague, Aisha Gilani Taylor, has joined us. She's my communications director, so she's here with us today. We are the oldest and strongest faith-based organization in Virginia. We have about 23 activists involved. We have 10 chapters. We have 120 congregations that work really closely with us with liaisons. And we have relationships with most of the major faith traditions in Virginia. So I thought I would talk first a little bit about why I love working with the faith community and why they're so fun to work with in terms of organizing. And then if you want to engage the faith community, where to start and what's important for the long haul. So the faith community is a structure for talking about values, right? We talk about values all the time. And so talking about equity and fairness, that really fits into how the faith community operates. So again, this question of equity and fairness in redistricting absolutely makes sense for a conversation in the faith community. Second, we have structure. I mean, we've got committees and social justice committees and women's committees, and some even have civic engagement committees. So, I mean, we have got structure in the faith community. So there's like something to work with. Thirdly, we have communication vehicles. Most congregations have a bulletin. Again, since not all congregations are meeting back in person, but normally if you're in person, like you have a bulletin that you can have bulletin inserts, you have a newsletter, you have emails, used to be phone chain alerts, but now it's all email. But there are lots of ways to communicate with people through the faith community. Fourth, we have leaders and good speakers. Our folks are used to speaking in public. And so, if you're looking for folks, like our folks are good at that. Fifth, collectively, we're very diverse. We're rich, we're poor, we're white, we're Black, we're Latino. We are everything in Virginia. Now, usually not all within one congregation. Most congregations are still segregated. Only about 12% in the country are really multiracial congregations. So we're segregated as congregations, but collectively we are incredibly diverse. And Virginia is becoming more and more diverse. So you have every form of the Christian community. And the most diverse within itself is actually the Catholic community because it's both whites and Latinos. So it's actually the most diverse denomination itself. But we have lots of Baptists. We have white Baptists and Black Baptists, and we have lots of Methodists and lots of Episcopalians and Church of God in Christ and AME Zions. We got lots of Christians. We have a growing Muslim community. And in my experience around Virginia, the Muslim community is very eager to be engaged in this work and love to be in relationships with people. So it's a great time to be reaching out and engaging the Muslim community. And then Northern Virginia in particular is the fastest growing Jewish community in the country. So again, we are an incredibly growing, diverse faith community in Virginia. We are young and old. Now, as you probably can guess, a lot of congregations are concerned about not gathering enough young people. But having said that, there's still youth groups in most congregations. There's all sorts of faith groups in colleges and universities. So we are both young and old. We do things when we care about the issues and there are clear things for us to do. If it's kind of confusing, we won't do it. So, you have to make it pretty clear. And we are nonpartisan. Within a congregation, people are worried about causing fights, right? Keeping the congregation together and unified is a big deal. And so particularly among white congregations, they're very concerned about being nonpartisan. All congregations legally have to be nonpartisan. So you got to emphasize that whenever you're working with them. Okay, so how to connect with the faith community. So in your community, first start out and see, is there a ministerial association of some sort or an interfaith group? Most larger communities have some sort of group. Now, they tend not to organize themselves into activities. They tend to be more of a kind of social networking kind of thing, but it's still a good way to find out who's in the community and connect with a lot of people. Secondly, it's just, who do you know, right? Who in your group is engaged in a congregation and how can they help tap you into them? Thirdly, what are the key denominations in our community? And really all you have to do is just kind of look. If anybody still has yellow pages, if you open the yellow pages to the religious organization section in the yellow pages, if there's this many Baptists and this many Catholics, there's a lot of Baptists in your community, right? You can easily look at it just through looking at the yellow pages. It's actually one thing where I don't know a comparable way to do it online these days, but again, you can figure out what are the structures. Generally speaking, if you want to work with a congregation, you're going to want to get the blessing of the clergy, and then you're going to want to work with a team of lay leaders. Now, there are some exceptions to that, but again, that's in general what you want to do. Partly because clergy are just so busy and they're called on all the time. And so you're going to get the most engagement if you get their blessing, but then they connect you with other lay leaders in the congregation. Then you got to think about why does redistricting matter to this congregation, and be able to talk about it. Again, I think the frames of equity and fairness work, but I think most people are not going to understand why this is going to matter. So you're going to have to spend a little bit of time helping people understand why it matters. And then you're going to have to give people suggestions of very concrete things they can do. And I do think it's important to try to think about what's an appropriate ask that people would feel comfortable with. And it's a classic organizing, right? It needs to be within the experience of the folks that you are working with and hopefully outside the experience of the targets, right? I mean, that's kind of classic organizing. So in the faith community, what are we comfortable with? Well, we're comfortable with prayer services and we're comfortable with studying things, and we're comfortable anyway, you think about things that people feel comfortable with. I did a lot of labor support in my life, and I would always get some union organizer who'd never crossed the path of a religious organization in decades saying to me, "I think your people should picket the church on Easter Sunday." And I'd be like, no. That is not a good idea. We're not doing that. So you can't have people who aren't comfortable in the faith community or don't work in the faith community coming up with ideas for faith people to do, because they won't do them. Because it has to be appropriate. On the other hand, when we were working on abolition of the death penalty, and we did an enormous amount of work on that, and I know many of you on this call sort of worked with us, and we worked with you on that. We were trying to make the connection between the death penalty and lynching in Virginia. And so our chapters around the Commonwealth did prayer vigils at lynching sites to try to make that connection. And then our job was to create sample prayer vigils, again, so it would be easy for people to do. They didn't have to write their own prayer vigil. They just had to pick up ours and do it. So again, think about things that you want people to do and make it simple and very concrete. Because if you ask folks to like get involved in the process, well, no one knows what that means, right? It's like that is not helpful, right? There's going to be a meeting at this place. Can you get 3 people to testify? And I will send you sample information you can testify with. Okay, then they can respond. So make it very, very simple. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the faith community has lots of good speakers, right? Again, it's not just the pastor, it's all these lay leaders who, have experience in leading worship and standing up in front of people. And so again, asking faith folks to speak in public settings, to open a prayer at things, right? That all makes sense. And most congregations also have music. They have choirs. And so ask the choirs to come do something at your event. Ask them to start out some event, with a song. So again, they've got resources and they have buildings. So if you ever need to have a meeting, you should never pay for a space. You should always have a space in a religious institution because they have buildings, and they're generally very open to do it. And depending on the congregation, they may also serve you some food along with it. So again, they like to be hospitable, they like to be welcoming, and so ask for that. Long term, working with the faith community is like working with anybody, right? It's fundamentally about relationships, and so getting to know people, getting to know how their congregations operate, what are the structures within the congregation, and longer term, getting to know the denominational structures within your community, because there's not only the congregational structures, but there are denominational structures that can help you engage more congregations. And again, I think finally to just, whenever you're engaging the faith community, if you can make it both fun, right, enjoyable, something they feel good about, right? We all like to have fun and they'll want to come back the next time. But also that you're asking them to do things that make a difference and help people understand how what you're asking them to do makes sense in light of the overall strategy and how whatever they're doing is going to be effective. Because they don't want to do things that aren't going to be helpful and effective. And so you've got to help explain how what you're asking them to do will really matter. I think working with the faith community is the best. And so I hope you will join me in engaging the faith community in all these social justice issues and for you all engaging folks in redistricting. So thank you so much, Liz and Daquan, for your leadership in Virginia. And it's an exciting time. And I'm so glad we're going to have lots of people involved in the process for the first time ever.